Hello and good morning. Welcome to my third live stream ever. This is the December live stream. My name is Natalie and this is Primary Focus. I'm just so glad you're here this morning. Before we get into it really, I just want to let you know what Primary Focus is. This is my passion. I was a teacher for 10 years and I taught in elementary school, mostly kindergarten and first grade. Hold on. Mostly in kindergarten and in first grade, a little bit in upper elementary too. During that time, first of all, I was very passionate about teaching. I know that I've left it, but during that time, something that I really loved was parent outreach. And then when I was getting my master's degree at Johns Hopkins, I worked a lot in parent outreach and techniques that teachers need to use to actually reach out to parents, right? I've studied education, I've studied child development, and sometimes the things that I know don't translate easily to people that haven't studied it for so long. So I worked a lot about how to reach out to families from different perspectives, different backgrounds, and things like that. And I put all that together. I'd always loved reaching out to parents and helping them help their kids thrive in school. And then a couple years after finishing my master's degree, I reached a point where I realized I couldn't stay in the classroom anymore. I just work in a state that really doesn't support teachers, and it felt like my career was reaching a dead end in terms of improving myself. And so I took a leap of faith and I started Primary Focus. So Primary Focus, the part that you see the most is my YouTube channel, my newsletter. Some of you might know me from Instagram as well, but it is so much more than that. I also do a lot of tutoring locally. I do consulting with families as well. So if you're having an issue in school, your child's test grades are low, you think your child isn't getting exactly what they need in school, I do calls with parents and I make learning plans to help address their child's needs. I love diving into data and test scores to pinpoint exactly what's going on. Something that I was talking about the other day in my Instagram stories was a lot of times children actually know a lot of math, but if they're weak in one single skill, it can really hurt them because as math gets more advanced, you need more skills to complete a simple word problem. And so something I'm really good at is pinpointing what exactly a child needs and helping them get that support. And it can make a real difference in a child's life, just that one little change. So Primary Focus is young, it is growing, and if you're here watching with me, I just want to say thank you and I want to say welcome because it is people like you that are showing up and commenting and messaging me, emailing me to cheer me on, that keeps me going because I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this to help your children thrive in school and give you an easier time navigating elementary school as well. And on that note, this week I am celebrating 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is so exciting. I've been working very hard to make a lot of intentional changes in my style and how I title things and the way that I dive into topics. And it's really paid off. So in June, 6 months ago, I reached 1,000 subscribers, which took me years to get. And this channel was started while I was still working full time, but 6 months later, I've tripled that and I have 3,000 subscribers as of, I think, 2-3 days ago. And oh, my heart is just so happy with that. Thank you. Thank you for supporting me and being here with me. It means a lot. Where you can find me if you're just joining in, YouTube, of course, you found me. I love commenting back. I love hearing from people. So you can comment on my things here. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm having a lot of fun over there too. If you want to have a personal conversation with me, you've got a deeper question, my email is hello@primaryfocus.tv. And then, of course, I have a newsletter as well, newsletter.primaryfocus.tv, where you can sign up. And if you want to work one-on-one with me, have a call to talk about what's going on with your child, or if you live locally in Charlotte, North Carolina area, I also do some tutoring. So you can reach out to me, hello@primaryfocus.tv. And then, of course, if you really want to say thank you today, you don't have to, but I do have a tip jar, buy me a coffee. I'll put the link in the chat here. And I always really appreciate it. Primary Focus is a young channel and I put a lot of work into it. So if you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks, I would always appreciate it. All right, well, that's my intro. Let's see. I don't know if you saw my husband put a cup of tea on my desk while I was talking. Thank you, Mike. I drink a lot of tea. I don't drink coffee. And so I'm fueled by it. This is a nice honey chamomile that we're working with. That is a little bit hot, so I will circle back. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of Q&A, but I'm also going to talk about some fun holiday memories in the classroom. And so why don't I start off with that? When I taught kindergarten, actually I did this in first grade too, but it changed when I went to kindergarten. The children have such a different energy to them in kindergarten. I used to do Polar Express Day. If you're familiar with the book, The Polar Express, you can send a little heart in the chat right now. Polar Express Day is a tradition that goes on in a lot of American elementary schools. And so this is how I did it. All week, the week leading up to that last day before winter break, I would do a book study on the Polar Express. Now, if you've ever read the Polar Express, it is actually a really beautiful book, but it is not for children in kindergarten. I mean, they can get some of the big topics, but it's a great book if you're teaching a child third grade and up vocabulary. I know like some middle school and high school teachers even use it for like descriptive writing classes and poetry. It is a beautiful book. If you haven't looked at it or it's been a long time since you've seen it, it's worth looking into. It's written lovely in a lovely way. But in kindergarten, it's a lot of text. So we would spend a week kind of diving into the book. And I honestly did have to just kind of summarize what some of the paragraphs said to make sure that they were getting the point. But we would do some activities just to tie it back to what we were working on in school. And then that last day before winter break, and I'm going to note here, this is if I was working in a classroom where all children observed holidays and seemed to have Santa come to their home. A lot of families have secular Santa come to their home, even if they are not practicing Christianity. But given the region where I live, very often this was the case. On that last day of school, we would have pajama day. And yes, of course, I had specific Christmas jammies that I would wear to school. And I love seeing all the kids come in their pajamas. A lot of times they were like cute thematic ones or those like onesies with the hood. They would just look so precious. I love seeing kindergartners in their pajamas because it's just their piece of their life. Of course, if anyone was wearing Paw Patrol pajamas, I would call them, Paw Patrol or the name of one of the characters the whole day, and they would love that. But in the morning, we would clean up the classroom and finish up any projects. Of course, we are leaving for 2-ish weeks on break. So they would definitely need to help me clean out the classroom. You'd be surprised how many kids have old food stuffed in their cubbies and in their desks. And then later in the day, we would start the Polar Express movie, and we would have hot chocolate and sometimes popcorn, sometimes a little treat, but always hot chocolate, which was so hard to prepare. I would maybe you have a sink in your classroom, which I did, but you don't have access to boiling water. But I would always, if the kids were on a break, like maybe in music class or something, I would get all their hot chocolates ready. And of course, kids are picky, so you'd have to make sure it wasn't too hot to burn them and take their order if they want marshmallows or not. And then there'd be that one child who just had a juice box because they hate hot chocolate. But I would put a lot of care into making that for them. And we would split the video into 2 parts. And I would always skip the scary parts in kindergarten. The first time I did this in kindergarten, I realized that the Polar Express actually has some really scary parts to it. So I learned the second time around to skip one specific chunk of the movie, and the kids never really noticed. The kids who had seen it before might say something, but most of them don't mind. I split it into 2 in kindergarten because kindergartners can't watch the entire thing in one stretch, but it would be so cute. I'd let them bring a pillow and stuffed animals, and they'd just be lounging out. Half the kids would fall asleep watching the movie, but it would just be a really special, relaxing time for the kids. Of course, I always had some coloring sheets for kids who couldn't hold the attention span for a full movie. It's hard when you're 5 years old to sit for a 90-minute movie. So we would let them do this. And then at the very end, I know I'm telling you a lot of details. I'm not sure if all these teacher details are interesting, but At the very end, my students didn't know this, but I actually had a partnership with Santa. And usually, if we were lucky, because, it's hard to get a hold of them, as the movie ended, we would get a special delivery. It would be right at the end of the day. And it would be a really cold box. And it would be wrapped up, but it'd be freezing cold, almost like it came from the North Pole. And it would be wrapped, big bow, and it would always say like, it almost looked like the FedEx label, but it said like Elf Express on it. And then if you shook it, it just jingled, jingle, jingle, jingle. And when you opened it up, it would be the most incredible thing. The first gift of Christmas, bells. And each child would get a bell with a gift tag on it with their name from Mr. C. And if you've read the book, the child in the book also gets a note from Mr. C when he loses his bell. And so all the kids would get a little bell and ring, 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 just like happened in the book. And it was so magical and so sweet. And I always love those moments from the North Pole, exactly. And then once they were all ringing their bells, I would time it perfectly, and we'd put the bells in our backpacks and go home for winter break, so we wouldn't hear the jingling all day long, just at the very end of the day. But I really look back on that, and it was always so special when I could do that, and just a very wonderful thing. All right, let's get into question 1, and I want to say hello to anybody that is here. I have pre-picked some questions to answer, but if you are watching and you've got a question, whether it's about helping your kiddo in school, a question about me, my opinion on something, drop it in the chat box. I would love to hear it. If you are watching the replay of this later, you can always drop a question in. I might answer it in a future live stream too. But with that said, let me take a sip of my tea and dive into question 1. This is a question from one of my newsletter subscribers, which always gets first priority. If you're not signed up for my newsletter yet, do that. Newsletter.primaryfocus.tv is where you can sign up, or you can just look on my website. There's little signups on every single article at the bottom of them. And this newsletter subscriber knows that I recently went back to Vietnam for a trip. And she said, how did your time teaching in Vietnam impact my teaching back in America? So a little bit of background. I taught at an international school in Vietnam from 2015 to 2017, so 2 school years. I taught first grade. It was in Hanoi. If you're one of my former students from there, I recently reconnected with them. Hello. And funny that you found this. So I taught in Vietnam for 2 years. It was an international school. I was not teaching English. I was teaching first grade. So if you moved to a foreign country and had to enroll your children in school, this could have been the school that you did, or that you enrolled your kids in. So my instruction was in English all day long. The kids did have like special classes where they could take other languages, or there were a lot of Korean students and a lot of Vietnamese students. So they did have like a couple hours a week that they went and got instruction in their own language. The other kids would take French or could opt into one Vietnamese or Korean. But it was just like a real international private school. And it changed my life living there. I moved there by myself, and had to start a life in a foreign country. And it was an incredible experience, a very privileged experience, but I am so, so, so happy I had it. So one of the big things that I saw immediately, just from my own experiences walking around in the street and from teaching, is that a lot of what I thought was common sense is not. It is taught. And a lot of things that we think are normal, or the way that all humans would react to things, are cultural. Vietnam is a country that is just about as opposite as you can get from the United States, but in a completely safe way. I never felt unsafe there. I never felt like I was unwanted, but everything that they did was different than how I did in the United States and how I grew up. And I just was constantly having moments where I realized that everything that I know was taught to me, and that common sense is socialized. And that helped me a lot because when I moved back, I moved down to kindergarten. And, in first grade and when I taught in upper elementary school, once you've got a year of school under your belt, it is very, very, what am I saying here? Once you have a year of school under your belt, you function a lot better in school. You know what to do. Even if you've changed schools, like you have an idea of how school functions, how to act, how to behave, how to get what you want. And kindergartners don't know that. Even if they did went to preschool, kindergarten is like on the first day that we came to kindergarten, I would teach them how to sit in a chair. And like a lot of kids, I realized when we would go to the cafeteria for lunch, a lot of kids are eating on the floor or their parents let them graze. Like they just have like food and they run around the house, get a couple bites, run around the house, get a couple bites. Like they hadn't sat at a table and like sustained eating and had to sit and wait when they were done. Even if they had, I mean, it's just structured in a different way. And so I think that really helped me moving into kindergarten because it's almost like coming back to Vietnam, because a lot of the things at the international school, we were doing them the American way, or more specifically the British way of doing things. And there was a lot of teaching. So one thing that we really focused on in Vietnam too was we never wanted to hurt a child's understanding of their home, of their culture, of their mother tongue language and their home culture and their traditions outside of school. We never wanted to hurt that. So we had to talk a lot about like at school, we do this. At home, something else might be happening. And I really took that into kindergarten too. I think it helped a lot because a lot of kids, I think, struggle with how we do things in different places and why rules aren't the same everywhere that we go. Hello, Andrea. Thank you for joining the live today. And so I realize that sometimes teachers unintentionally alienate children because they are doing something different at home, because it's part of their culture or because it's what makes sense for their family. It's how things are. And we never want to alienate people because they do something different, especially if they're showing up in public and doing what maybe Americans would consider as like common courtesy or common sense. All right. So another thing, my math education is a lot different because English does not do a good job of talking about numbers the way that other languages do. And what I learned is in Vietnamese and in Korean, and I believe in a lot of other languages, but especially languages from the Asian continent, when they speak about numbers, they speak very literally. So I'm going to talk to you about the teen numbers. We say 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. In Vietnamese, if you literally translate how to say 11, you say 10, 1. If you, you say 1, 10, and then 12 is 2, 10, and then 3 is 3, 10. And when I was teaching place value, American children really struggle with place value, and this is where the breakdown happens a lot for kids with math because they have a hard time understanding numbers over 10. And literally in Vietnamese, when you are speaking, you are saying like the number for 22, you say 2 10s and 2 1s. For 43, you say 4 10s and 3 1s. And you're just saying the numbers. So when I got to place value with my first graders, I barely even had to teach it to them. And in fact, it was one of my students that was a native English speaker was the one that was struggling. So I took a lot of that into my math practice as well and like taught the children. I used to call it the regular way and the math way of speaking. And when I started teaching the regular way, 13, and the math way, 10 and 3 1s, and having them consistently say numbers the math way out loud, all of my kids would ace place value every single time. So that was really a huge awakening for me that I think was important. I know I've been talking a lot about this. I taught in an IB school, inquiry-based, international baccalaureate, but it's an inquiry-based school. That made me really think twice about testing and how in the United States, we test kids a lot to the point that there's not always time to teach because there's so much testing going on. And I learned a lot about how to find out what kids know without forcing them to take a test. And how, as a teacher, I know my stuff well enough that I can observe a child and see if they know what they're doing without making them sit down and take a test. And again, moving into kindergarten after that experience was really important because kindergarten children don't test well. They don't know how to test. They don't have long attention spans. It is inappropriate, in my opinion, to constantly be testing children in kindergarten. And so I feel like I really took that into kindergarten, and oftentimes I was probably the difficult one in meetings because I was encouraging the team to do something other than testing to find out if our kids actually knew their information. It also made me a more fun teacher. There's a lot of project-based. A lot of things at the international school was about letting children enjoy their childhood, and there was a lot less pressure for them. I do know that they get pressure as they're older, but because they really want to go to colleges internationally. But at the elementary school level, we were having a lot of fun. All right, that's that. Before I get into my next question, hello to everyone that's just joined. If you have questions, put them in the chat box. I've picked out a few questions, but if you ask me something right now, I am happy to answer. Sign up for my weekly newsletter. I dive into tips to help your kids thrive in school. I dive into child development information. I love my newsletter. That's what I do instead of blogging every week, so I have a lot of fun with it. I just put the sign up in the chat box. If you have specific questions about your child, if you want to meet with me, if you want me to help get your child on a learning plan, or if you're local to the area and you want tutoring, please reach out to me, hello@primaryfocus.tv. I have just put that in the chat box. And then, of course, you don't have to, but if you want to say thank you, I also do have a tip jar. I will put that in the chat box too, buymeacoffee.com/primaryfocus. But thank you. Your engagement, watching this, commenting is really the greatest gift of all. I am a new creator. I have a small channel, but I'm very passionate about what I do. And the gift of a comment on a video, the gift of sitting here and watching this with me right now, really just helps YouTube know that this is something that other people might be interested in too. Your engagement is a huge gift. Thank you. All right, question number 2. This one came from an Instagram follower. Do you hate Elf on the Shelf? Which made me chuckle. No, I don't hate Elf on the Shelf. I think this person is asking because I've recently put up 2 videos talking about Elf on the Shelf. The first I'll put in the chat here is my long form video talking about Elf on the Shelf in schools, Christmas overload, consumerism at Christmas, and rejecting holiday traditions. That is a video I'm extremely proud of and really enjoyed making. And then I also made a short about how to reach out to Santa to get your child out of the Elf on the Shelf tradition. So if you want to watch those are in the chat there. Here's my deal with Elf on the Shelf. I just think it's a huge commitment. It is a huge commitment because it's not even just for one season. It is an annual tradition that happens on a daily basis. And, the only thing I can really commit to this time of year is my advent calendar, okay? So what I wish is that it's a newer program, right? And I think there's room for this to happen. I wish Santa would adjust the rules, or that parents could opt in annually to Elf on the Shelf instead of doing it every single year. And Santa, if you're listening to me, I would love it if there was some space for that. It's just that we don't know how life is going to be next year. And having an elf on the shelf is a little bit like having a guest stay with you for the full month or getting a pet for the month. Those elves will destroy your home. And I just wish that there was wiggle room that if your child understands how to be good, we could do it one time, we could do it maybe 2 years. And then if your child understands how to get on the good list, we could just keep it moving from there, send a letter to Santa and call it a day. I don't know. What do you think about this? But I don't hate it. Objectively, I think it's cute. I think it's a lot. Okay, question number 3. This is from a newsletter subscriber. If you're a newsletter subscriber, they always get first priority for questions on my live stream. They have asked me, when should I start thinking about my child's handwriting? Great question. A common question that I get too. I see parents of 3 and 4-year-olds really trying to push handwriting, and I get it. Handwriting is a tangible skill. It is something that, like, yes, it takes time and concentration, and I do think it's a little bit of a pain to teach handwriting. But it is also something that, like, if you have the time, energy, and concentration, you can teach anybody. But 3 and 4-year-olds do not need to have perfect handwriting. It is not appropriate to be forcing them to have beautiful letters. It is not appropriate to have them have like really small letters or be writing perfectly on a line. With a 3 and 4-year-old child, do not focus in about handwriting. Think about beautiful handwriting. Focus in on the form, not letter size. Children that age write very large. Don't focus on beautiful, perfect handwriting. Instead, what you can do is when you teach them to draw a circle, teach them to close it at the top. Because even though it's just a circle, a shape to them, if they have that muscle memory to close at the top, it is going to help them with the letter A, lowercase g. Any of the letters with a circle must close at the top so that your tail comes off nicely. I do have some shorts about handwriting if you need more of a visual, but go ahead and draw a letter, a lowercase a or a lowercase g. If you're closing it at the bottom, it is hard to get that tail. You have to like trace it back up or lift your pencil. So close your circles at the top, draw from top to bottom. That's something to focus on too. And work on things like handedness, posture, holding writing materials, but it doesn't need to be beautiful. A 3 and 4-year-old needs to be developing muscles and fine motor coordination. I see a couple more people have joined the live stream. Hello, feel free to say hi in the chat. Not until a child is 5 years old and in kindergarten do you need to be working on nicer looking handwriting. And that's when they have a solid understanding of drawing lines, shapes, circles, and things like that. Then in kindergarten and first grade, that is when I would push for good handwriting. And kindergarten is going to be a great window, especially like that second half of the year, January and onward. If they're ready, you can really start earlier. And that I would really push it hard in kindergarten because children in kindergarten are given the grace and the time and energy to have a hard time with writing, right? In first grade, their teacher is hoping that they can come in maybe writing a sentence or two, maybe even more. In kindergarten, their teacher is hoping that they can write a word at a time. Maybe by the end of the year, they can get a sentence or two going. But there is a lot more time and energy for handwriting in kindergarten than any other grade. If your child gets to mid first grade and their handwriting is not good, it is just going to be harder because 1, they've been writing for longer, and 2, they are expected to write a lot more. So their energy needs to go into quality work and not the appearance. So I would push kindergarten, early first grade is going to be the time to get them good handwriting. It's not too late though if you feel like your child needs help, but if you're a little early in the game, I'd push for it now. Okay. Another fun memory from kindergarten. And again, I see more people join my live. Hello, thank you for being here. Please drop a question in the chat if you have one. Questions about elementary school, questions about me. I'm happy to answer. Holidays in kindergarten. I have so many funny memories of holidays in kindergarten. If you're not careful though, with young kids, they will celebrate Christmas from September to February. And we always had to have a little chat when they came back that first week in January. They'd come back, they'd be like, jingle bells, jingle bells. I'd be like, shh, we're done. Shh, wait till next year. We're done now. And I always felt like I had to be a referee balancing this holiday cheer in school. For one thing, not all kids celebrate Christmas. And so, yeah, you can bring your cheer in here, but like, I'm not going to let this completely take over the classroom and alienate other children. And the other thing too is like, it did get a little annoying at times. So you had to just like, hey, we can't daydream about Santa all day. We do need to finish this assignment. So, but that said, my last class that I had teaching was so joyful. Oh, I loved that class. And I remember all throughout the year, they would spontaneously burst into songs, especially songs from music class that they were learning. And they oftentimes, when they came back from music class, we would like start an assignment, then they would go to music, and then we'd come back and they'd be finishing an assignment. So they would like get to work very quickly and be deep into working on their project that they were on, and they would just burst into song all the time. It was so sweet. And one of my favorite holiday memories is when they all burst into Jingle Bells together. I'm linking back to my Instagram. This is an ancient primary focus Instagram reel here. But if you want to hear my class singing Jingle Bells, is just a very sweet memory, and I thought it was a very nice thing. This time of year, I loved the little gifts that the kids would give me too. I mean, kids year round give you gifts, but there's always like a little more excitement for that at Christmas. The cards, the pictures, the little things that they took from home without permission. I always had to tuck those back into the backpack. Honey, you can't just steal from home and give me something random, but thank you. I just loved that kind of stuff this time of year. And then one of my favorite things, and this really came, I guess, from the parents, I loved getting family Christmas cards this time of year. Very few families ever sent me a Christmas card. I get it. They cost money. You have a very specific list of who gets a card and who's not on that list. But if you have an extra one and you do send Christmas cards, it was so nice to see the family together. I feel like you got this piece of the family that you don't normally get to see. You know, school is a very different place. Oftentimes when we saw parents, it was like on a time limit, or they're, coming after their work day and they're tired, or you're talking about a specific thing. And so to see that little bit of their life just made me so happy. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for this time. I want to say thank you for joining my live stream. The replay will be on my channel. It might take a minute to load, but I see a lot of you join later on. I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you're having a wonderful weekend. Again, if you would like to contribute to the tip jar, always very appreciated. And the best gift you can give Primary Focus this year is the gift of a comment on a video. I hope you go and check out some of my videos. I've got a few holiday ones up about making a wonderful holiday party in class that also shares some disaster stories. I have my Elf on the Shelf in schools and video talking about some of the ways that this holiday season can get over the top and how you can pull back. And then, of course, I just came out with my gift guide for budget $0 to $100 about how you can make your teachers smile without spending money, or by spending a ton of money. Up to you on that. Thank you for being here. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. I'm not much of a DIY maker, but I do appreciate a nice DIY gift, if I'm being honest. Thank you so much for being here, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays.